learning target 2, we're using given information to find new trig values. And again, sometimes they're going to be reciprocals and really simple. And then sometimes we're going to use identities so that we can put them together somehow, some way.
Do we need the unit circle?
You might want to have the unit circle out just for reference, but you don't really need it. Okay, so they're giving you 3 pieces of information in each one of these questions. The first thing they're giving you is an actual trig value. All right, that's the original, what you have, that's like what is given to you. Then they're giving you a quadrant of the unit circle, which isn't very important on the first 2, so I'm not going to worry about it for right now. And then they're giving you a trig function to find. Okay, again, some of these are easier than others. So for the first one, I know I have cosine, it's 2/3, and I'm looking for secant. Well, cosine and secant are just reciprocals, right? Yes. So secant is just 3/2. So it's not, I mean, you guys could have done that without me doing this. No, we're just finding the trig values, not graphing anything. So the same thing happens on the second one. They tell you cotangent. Again, they give you a quadrant to the unit circle to look in, which isn't important at this very moment for right now. And then they say to find tangent. Well, cotangent and tangent are reciprocals. So now the only thing different on this one is that when you flip it over, you get -2 over the square root of 5, and you do have to rationalize.
I remember doing this.
So you get -2 times the square root of 5 over 5. So the first 2 are not difficult. Again, you could have done the first 2 without my assistance, probably. That's all you do. That's all you need to do for the first 2. Now the next 2 are not that simple. So I'm going to erase everything on the screen so I've got room to work. All right, so the next one. It tells you that sine theta is -1/5. And we're looking for cosine theta. We're going to ignore the boundary for a second. Now, sine and cosine are not reciprocals of each other. But we have to have some way of relating them somehow. So if you look at your identity sheet, there's going to be an identity that has sine and cosine involved.
Yeah, that's protein.
But that won't help us if we don't know cotangent. Sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. All right. No, it's not just 1. Sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is 1. All right. So I know sine. It told us in the problem. So I'm going to put -1/5 here and square that in a second. And then we're going to be solving an equation for cosine. It's just an algebra problem then. I'm pausing. Whatever identity you use, you have to have enough information where you only have one missing trig function. So if you, like Austin had said cotangent, that's cosine and sine, but you don't know cotangent, so that wouldn't help us. All right. So -1/5 squared is 1/25. These need to be in fraction, not decimal. So then I'm just solving the equation. So I'm subtracting 1/25. So you have to have a common denominator. So that ends up being 25/25 minus 1/25, right? 1 is 25/25. And I subtracted the 1/25 from each side. So you get 24/25. Everyone's still with me?
Yeah.
So now you gotta take the square root. So you get cosine theta, which is what we're looking for, right? And we get the square root of 24/5. Now this is where this boundary becomes important. When you take a square root, the answer can be positive or negative. So you have to look at the quadrant that you're in to decide if cosine is supposed to be positive or negative in that quadrant. So from pi to 3 pi over 2, which is what they told us in the highlighted section. That's the third quadrant. Is cosine positive or negative in the third quadrant? Negative. So then we make this negative. So that's why that boundary is there. When you start using square roots, you're going to have positives or negatives. It's going to matter.
Okay, we'll make that negative.
Yes.
We'll make it negative.
Because it's in the third quadrant. Cosine is negative in the third quadrant. Right? Everything's negative in the third quadrant. Sine and cosine. Okay, now we do have to simplify this. Yeah. Square root of 24. So if you are doing the square root of 24, that's 24 is 6 times 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 6, 6.
So we have to
I would attempt.
Okay, so where is the
I got the negative from the quadrant they told us to look at. They told us to look at the third quadrant on the unit circle. In the third quadrant, cosine is negative. Okay. Everyone clear about the negative? Everyone clear about where I got this answer from? Now, on the homework, they're going to be similar. I still have one more, but on the homework, they're going to be similar. But what if, I'm just playing the what if game so you guys can figure this out, okay? What if this had said, not cosine, because we just did that. What if it had said to find secant theta? There is an identity that has sine and secant in it. I know that secant's the reciprocal of cosine, right? There isn't one with sine and secant, is what I'm saying. But I know that secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I would have done the entire same thing and got cosine at the end, and then flipped cosine at the end to get secant. So on some of the homework problems, to think through it a little bit. All right, one more. Can I erase what's on here? All right, last one. Tangent theta equals negative 4/7. We're on the fourth quadrant, and we're trying to find secant. So again, look at your identities. You're trying to relate tangent and secant. Tangent squared theta plus 1 equals secant squared theta. All right, so again, we're going to substitute in what we have. We know tangent. We know what tangent is. That's the only thing we know. So we get 16 over 49 plus 1 equals secant,
Well, it's negative.
but you square it.
What would you round it down?
We're not rounding anything, so we're using fractions. All right, then we're going to add this 1. So again, a 1 is just 49 over 49 because you need a common denominator. So 16 plus 49 is 65.
That was my main Never mind. I could say that was painful, but I kept out saying that.
And then we take the square root of each side. So I get the square root of 65 over 7. And the square root of 65 does not reduce. So now we just need to decide if it's positive or negative. So we're in the fourth quadrant. Secant's the reciprocal of cosine. So whatever the sign of cosine is the sign of secant. So what is cosine, positive or negative, in the fourth quadrant? Positive. So we leave this positive. The reciprocal of cosine. So on the unit circle, in this quadrant, cosine is positive. That means secant has to be positive.
Don't you need to try to break down the 65?
I did. You can't. 60 squared of 65 is the best you can do. Okay? Yeah, that's it. That is your answer. Question.
Okay, so whenever you go like the full water,
Yes.
you look at
Since we're in the fourth quadrant, since we have secant, look at cosine.
oh,
But it's the reciprocal. So whatever cosine is secant's going to be. Okay.